Hey guys, welcome to episode 322 of the Best Practices Show podcast. I am your host, Kirk Barrett. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're joining us for the first time, I want to do two things. I want to welcome you and I want to congratulate you to an incredible community of people that are just committed to learning all the time. And we built this podcast to be an incredible resource for you to build a private practice. So if you're a dental practice owner and you're looking at improving your practice and you just want to make some progress with your team, you found yourself in the right place. So I'm so excited you're here. And this also marks the second, rebirth of what we did. So we took a little bit of a break and embraced the COVID relief dental conference, which was tremendous. And we got a tremendous amount of help with that. And so you're going to see a lot of great programming coming your way with great educators, with great tips, tools, specific strategies, great thinking for you and your team. And we're going to continuously bring you that to you every single week so that you guys can build a better practice and a better life. And we take a lot of show notes here. So a couple things. If you're watching today or listening today, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. I don't care if it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, so that you can get these episodes every single week as we bring the best educators in dentistry to you all the time. And then also, I'm going to encourage you to check out the show notes. For every episode, what we're doing is we're taking extensive notes on these. These are all being transcribed. All of the things that you're going to hear during these particular shows, we're going to list links to them. And you can always find them at our website, www.actdental.com/whatever the episode number is. So this episode's number is 322. So if you go to actdental.com/322, you're going to see all of the show notes. You'll see all the links that are mentioned, and we're just going to encourage you to keep going back there and use it as a resource because, again, we want you to get the very most out of it. Now, what's really cool about today is I'm just going to jump into it. I wanted to do this the right way and invite somebody that has been near and dear to our hearts back to the show and just really, kind of paint some vision for this. And so Dr. Kevin Groth, if you were on the recordings for the Dental Relief Conference, you got to know him. And he's been not only a special person to us as a coaching company, but a very great leader for young dentists all over the country, just looking for a little bit of inspiration, great thinking. And so I can't be more excited, buddy. Like as you and I were talking last night, I'm like, I got it. All right, game on, let's do this. And,
yeah, right.
We schedule regular calls and I need them as much as, more than anything, because you inspire me and we challenge each other. But for people that are listening or watching for the first time, I want them to know a little bit about your story. So if they've never heard of you, they don't know who you are, they don't know who Dr. Kevin Groth is, tell them who you are. We want to know your story. So give us your story.
Sure. Well, my name is Dr. Kevin Groth. I'm a dentist out of Detroit, Michigan, about 30 minutes outside of that. So graduated from Michigan 2013. So I've been out almost, a little over 7 years. So it's kind of been a surreal journey of mine. And it's something that you've greatly helped that journey. And I want to kind of share that story as well. But this is kind of a surreal moment for me because I started listening to this podcast 3 years ago. And I dove in hard and I listened to 150, 180 episodes. And so it was always a goal of mine to pop on this podcast. So kind of a check mark on that list of things. But like I said, I got out 7 years ago. And in that time, it was quite the journey. I started practicing right away with my dad. And a lot of people would say this is a silver platter moment for you because you had this opportunity to go in with the practice of, it was already established. But I split the time. So half the time was with him. And also the other times were as associates at different practices. Some were heavy PPO practices. I was just learning to kind of get my speed up and get the skill set. Others were very high-end practices that I learned a lot of patient communication and how to do things the right way and dive into occlusal philosophies and things like that. So in that time, I kind of formulated who I was and my identity, and I struggled a lot, just like a lot of other general dentists that came out of school. And it was something that I had to figure out who I was, what I was about, how to practice, how I want to treat people, how I want to embody my team. And through all those experiences, I kind of formulated what I wanted. And I didn't have that, and that's something that's why I came to Kirk Barron's seminar at the Las Vegas AGD meeting, and I saw you. And that time I was really struggling to find who I was. And you said, the happiest people I know have the simplest lives. And ultimately that changed everything for me, because I said, no matter what this costs, no matter what I'm doing, I'm signing up right away. I was probably the easiest sale for ACT to come on as a client, because I just said, sure, whatever I need to do, I'm in, because I believe in what you're preaching. I believe in how you embody the balance of life. The happiest, people are the ones that have a fulfilled life, and then you fit the practice to embody that. And I think that's important. So 2 years later, working through ACT, I found a practice that I really love now, that I didn't have with my dad's practice. And I still kept the practice. It sounds like I started a new one, but no, I kept it. But really, I flipped everything.
Yeah.
New team, new systems, new protocols. Everything about that is an entirely different practice. And it's something I'm proud of. I love going to work. I love being the leader I am now, because I was always a leader, but I didn't know how to lead. And I think that's something that's important, is that you just assume leadership, because I was class president or captain of the teams or whatever it was throughout my life. But when you actually start listening to people and learning how to lead is an important thing to be able to take at a young point in my career. And now I just keep building and building and building from there. So
and let's paint some perspective on this. So you're how old today? How old are you?
33.
You're 33, you're married, you got a family going, we're so proud of you in so many different ways. But I also want you to talk about the conversation you and I had many months ago. You're like, we got to give voice to the new dentist. And we're going to talk about the new dentist show in a little bit, but this is a passion that you have, this particular segment of the marketplace. You said, these people are very important because they have a voice. Give us some perspective on what the new dentist is, how they feel, what they might be experiencing. And the cool thing about you is you've actually gone at it from a very real perspective. You're not one of those people who's like, oh, it's so great, and I got an amazing practice, I got several hundred patients or 1,000 patients. Tell us about that conversation and that segment of the marketplace that oftentimes educators don't give voice to a little bit.
Sure. And there's a reason to it, because new dentists, quite frankly, don't have a way about doing when they get out of school. They don't have a lot of money, so you're not going to really make a lot of money off of that. So people ignore that generation of dentists, which is sad. And we would do these weekly discussions. I love those phone calls, and that's something that just naturally came up. Hey, I was at a wedding this weekend, and I was talking to my friends, and so many of these friends graduate and they start working in these jobs, and they just don't feel like they have a purpose. They don't feel like they have a vision for what their life is. And they just kind of keep working without really finding a direction for themselves that they find fulfillment, which I think is unfortunate. And I think that's a majority of dentists that come out of school. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about this today, and I think it's because you talk about it a lot. You get conflict, you get turmoil when you have a wide difference between expectation and reality. And that's a lot like a comparison of parenthood, if I have to be honest with you, because as a father of an almost 2-year-old, we start dental school, right? And dental school, you have these expectations of, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change people's lives. I'm going to work in this environment that's always voted #1 profession every year. And I can have a balance of life. I can work whenever I want to work. I can make a good living. And same like when your wife gets pregnant, I'm sure you understand this too. Everyone says, oh my gosh, you're going to be the best dad, and you're going to have all these things that it's going to become such an amazing time of your life. I'm so happy for you. I'm excited. And as soon as the baby comes out, how you doing? Like, are you sleeping okay? I mean, you become a zombie, and you are basically there just to facilitate diaper changes and feeding this baby and keeping it alive. Yeah. And you say, so what happened to this whole excitement for parenthood? And it's the best thing ever, because the reality of it is that it's not that exciting initially. Right. And that's the same thing when you graduate. You have these expectations. I'm this dentist now, and I'm so ready just to change the world, and I'm going to have these smile makeovers. And really, you're working at an office that you're working extensive number of hours, Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday. You're killing yourself. Your back hurts, and you're doing 19 MOD all day long. And that's not that exciting to do fillings, and it's not really engaging with the patient. You're not really changing lives by doing simple fillings. but then you start working more and you start being a parent more and you become more confident with what you're doing, right? And then you start really learning these lessons. Like you can read all these books and you can learn how to be a parent, you can learn how to be a dentist, but until you start actually acting on it, you start to get an experience, you start getting more confident with what you're doing. And then you start realizing this is how I want to do things. And then you have other people around you to support you, parents, grandparents, friends that say, this is something that I would recommend, or this is how I did it. Maybe you can learn from that. And it's the same thing with dentistry, with mentors. And you start coming up with different ideas and you start surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, that want to have the best interest for you. And that's when you start really getting a good sense of purpose in your career. And that's why I met up with ACT, because I surrounded myself with people that I embodied that same philosophy of life. And everything took off and changed from there. And it's the same thing with parenthood. I'm living that life now as a parent and as a dentist that I was hoping to achieve prior to becoming a dad, prior to becoming a dentist. And it's an amazing thing. So hopefully that analogy makes some sense. And it was long-winded, but
I love it. I love it. So just go there. What would you want to say to a new young dentist that's never heard you talk before or us talk? What would you say to a dentist coming right out of dental school? Or, Martin on our team, he's thinking about being a dentist. What would you say to that person?
You're not going to graduate and it's going to become easy and everything's going to be perfect overnight, and nor should it, because you need to learn from those experiences and learn from those failures. And that's why I started the New Dentist Show, is because what I came to realize is that all these profound people in this profession that have been out 20, 30 years all have a very similar story. They started from the same position that we all started from when they got that diploma. And they learned through the failures, they learned through those hard moments, they learned how to adapt and build and grow and set up a vision for what they deem as success. And they didn't get there overnight. They had to fail. They had to walk themselves into corners and they had to figure out how to turn around and get around it. And I think that's important. And also the value of mentorship, because they all express something of saying, I had certain people looking out for me, and I want to share those moments and those lessons so I can pass that along to someone else like yourself and push you forward just like someone else pushed me forward. And that's so important. And so having a show to sit there and learn from people and learn their story, learn their background, and see how they became successful is really motivating to a lot of people, myself included. And it's been such a breath of fresh air knowing that I've had so many people reach out to me during this time and say, hey, thank you for being a voice. Thank you for being a light to shine on the fact that there is a dark place in dentistry that no one wants to talk about. And ultimately it's something that if you get into that dark place and you get out of it, it becomes very refreshing. But also just knowing that most of these dentists live that life. They weren't given this silver platter that they came out, and know that everyone's been there. Keep living, keep growing, keep educating yourself, and surround yourself with people that are like-minded so that you can move forward with to a better place in life.
Yeah. And I want to go back to that. You said lessons learned as you listen to all these people. So I want to ask you specifically. We went through a pandemic. We weren't planning for this. If I would have told you this was going to happen, you would have called me a liar and we would have laughed over it for a beer. And I still keep thinking we're going to wake up from this long nightmare and I'm going to go, Kevin, you're not going to believe this. There was a pandemic and it lasted for like 8 months and you're like, oh, whatever. What lessons did you learn? And as you started the show, you started the New Dentist Show, which is phenomenal. And you've had some unbelievable guests. I want to talk about the lessons they shared in that. So let's first start with you, or if you want to start with the lessons on the New Dentist Show with the incredible guests you have.
Yeah, let's start with the guests first. Let's start with the guests first, because I think it's something that I realize that each one of these people are phenomenal restorative dentists that I've interviewed. So you have Mark Hyman, John Cranham, Rob Ritter, Darren Becker, everyone that I've had on there have been
Bo Bruce.
I mean, they've all been these people that are just genuinely good people.
Yeah.
Lenny Hess. I mean, they're all about establishing relationships with the people they work with, establishing relationships with the people they work on. And ultimately, that's what it's all about, because if you treat people well, everything else will come into play.
Right.
And that's so important, because Lenny Hess, I mean, he talked about it. He said, I started this practice and I didn't have the highest technology. I had a crappy decored office, but people continued to kept coming to me and seeing me for treatment for years because I just cared about people. And ultimately, if you care about people, Nobody else cares about the decor. Nobody else
Right.
cares about the technology. But then when you do update that, and I'm going through that myself, I renovated the office, I got the technology, and now people appreciate the fact that, wow, all right, you're making an investment into this office, but I've already stuck with you during this time because I know you are a good person. You're to care for me. And that's
Right.
what every single guest has said. Take care of people, the rest will fall into play. We all have a different story, but that principle really applies. I also think it's important to recognize that these people, while they're great restorative dentists, that only occupies 10, 15% of their practice.
Mhm.
They're also doing bread and butter dentistry.
Wait. They're not all doing full mouth rehabs
None of
and
them are
quadrant.
doing the majority of their practice. That would be
Yeah.
exhausting too, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you do a full mouth reconstruction, you know how hard it is. You can't do that all day, every day.
Right.
And I think that's important to recognize because, I mean, when you have someone like Bill Robbins come on there and talk about how, yeah, 85% of my practice is just doing composites and crowns. And I think that's so great that he recognizes those moments because it's also something that I do as well, as well as the majority of the general dental population. So then you can start talking about with Bo Bruce, how do you do a posterior composite? What are those things that you do for a crown prep that really makes it so that's predictable and easy for you so that you don't have to have remakes all the time? And those are cool discussions that we've really had in the show. And I've really enjoyed those moments because it just normalizes the mundane, which is the majority of our profession.
Yeah.
So,
It's been fun to watch your episodes too, because a lot of these guests paint light on things. You're like, oh, I know I got to do a better job of that. Like Mark Hyman's a great one, just
sure.
really re-emphasizing the whole idea, how you got to take care of your team on a
He's
regular basis. Yeah.
he
Like
is amazing.
the roses on their anniversaries and just little things that you're like, oh my gosh, that's
Michelin
brilliant.
star restaurants and the trips that he's taking out to Napa and all these different people that he's taken care of over the time. He's all
Right.
about relationships, and there's no one better than that than Mark
Yeah.
Hyman.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got a plane
Someone
flying
cutting
over?
grass right now in my yard.
Don't even sweat it. Don't even sweat it. I can hear you great. So
Anyway, I just have taken so much from all these people, and like John Cranham, I really had a respect for him because of the Dawson Academy connection, but I just really learned how great of a man he is,
yeah.
establishing a vision for your life and going forward with that vision. I mean, he said at 26 that I want to take over Pete Dawson's role.
Yeah.
Wow, those are big shoes to fill, and I just have tremendous respect for somebody that can say something like that. And that's such a cool thing that he's really established for himself in his life, and just he's all about vision, and I appreciate that because that's.
And he did it too. He also had the story, the same one that Lenny had, which if you see the pictures of his first office, you're like, oh my goodness. And I think the guy that he bought the office from did one crown in like 10 years or whatever type of a thing. And everybody starts with modest means. And I think as a young dentist, because you could give voice to this better than anybody, it helps you understand, gosh, like these are real people. Like these are giants in dentistry. And he slept in his car, like the first Pete Dawson course. Crazy. He didn't have enough money for a hotel. So like if you're a young dentist, you're like, man, I don't have any money, or you don't understand, I don't have a beautiful practice. Well, I don't think anyone started with a beautiful practice.
They all had stories like that. Bo Bruce talked about it too. And ultimately it is expensive to get quality dental education.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an investment into yourself. And take a risk on you. And I think that's important because while any type of a Koi, Spear, Dawson, Pankey, they're all going to be $20,000, $25,000.
Right.
Someone asked me, okay, is that worth it? Yeah. I've already made back the 25 grand in a year's worth of being a part of the academy. And I think that's important because now it just compounds off of that. So while it was an initial investment, I think it's important to say that you're going to get more cases and you're going to get, and I'm not saying I'm doing full mouth reconstructions all the time, but I'm doing Invisalign because I did a comprehensive examination. And I think it's important to just know that you build on that, which is important.
Right. But go back to that. I want to ask you about that too, because a constant conversation I'll have with the young dentists is people say, well, I can't afford to do this. I can't. It's not so much the education, it's the fire in your belly. When you come back, you got better perspective. You're around clinicians that have seen wear at this level. They understand the occlusal challenges and they can paint a picture for you. And you're like, oh my gosh. So it keeps paying back a return over time. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, no doubt about that, right? But also I think it's important because there's a lot of CE junkies out there and they never put it into practice. And that's really hard. So I was really intentional when I did the Dawson Academy or any type of course. Every time I went to Inner Circle with ACT, I'd come back, have my team meeting on Tuesdays, and I would spend 2 of those hours educating my team on what I learned. And it serves two purposes. One, you're teaching your team what you learned so they can pick up the things that you're doing. So now they know what an equilibration is, or they know what profit first means, or they know all these different components that you're taking away from these conferences. But also, if you have to educate people, you're going to learn it even better.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, that's really the most important thing, is that if you can teach somebody what you learned, then it just solidifies in your mind and you're more apt to put it into practice because you're learning from that. So it's a twofold thing that I couldn't recommend any more highly.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Now, I also want to go back to the whole vision behind the New Dentist Show. As you've done this, so tell us, I want you to tell the listeners why you did it, what you're learning in this whole process, and then I want to transition to your practice in those lessons. But tell us a little bit about the vision behind it. Like, what's your passion? Why did you do this in the first place?
I think one of the essentials in my life is to help people. Right. I really want to guide people. I want to inform people and give them a sense that, I can help. And that's really what it comes to. And if I can bring people on there and show the struggle and show the lessons learned, and also just the side conversations. I've had many car rides home where I'm saying, call me. I would love to talk you through this. Let's get you set up so you can have a better path for your life. And that's what you did to me when I called you after Vegas and I said, hey, I want to speak to you. You said, sure. When and where, I'm here for you. This is what it's about. And that's really what the best thing about the dental community is, better than any other profession out there, is that we're there to support each other. And I think that's really, really valuable. I'm proud of what this started as, and I think we're just going to continue to keep adapting and molding to what we feel is right. I'm glad that we're kind of working together through this, because you and I are so in tune with each other. And I think it's something that it's really going to become something that it started off as an idea, and I think it's becoming and building from there. And I don't know where the future direction is, but I know it's going to be something special. I know it's already changed some lives, and I know it's something that we're going to keep kind of having that happen week after week after week, because that's what it's about, is just helping and support people.
Yeah. And two things coming to mind in that is, number one, Bill Robbins has always said this, we got to leave the campfire in better condition than we found it. I think about that all the time. I even said it to my son this weekend. He's like, Dad, you've never camped with me. And I'm like, we've done we RV thing. He's like, okay, we're not campers. We're a baseball, volleyball family, football family. But, and then the second thing, you and I learned this phrase together with Scott McLean, which was sprezzatura, which is you replace yourself with people that are better than you, that can take care of the world and add value to that. And that's one of the things that comes to mind when I think about you, because I was there to coach you and kind of give you some mentorship, but now the relationship is changing. It's almost like it's Star Wars-ish, kind of a thing. But because even as we were talking yesterday, I want you to go into this and talk about one of my favorite things about you, or anybody that's just grabbing the bull by the horns and creating their future, which is exactly what you're doing, is you get super creative, and it's the thinking that you have about it. You mentioned the profit first thing yesterday. You also talked about, look, we don't have to have a schedule that's always full, wide open for 4 days. I'm going to rethink it, because I want you to talk about that fatigue that you felt was it a Thursday when I called you and you're like, I'm fried. Speak to that, and then speak to the recovery. And then when you came out of it and you're like, I got some new thinking, and there was a whole nother jump in your step, in your voice. Can you share with us that thought?
Yeah, so I think you asked me about the lessons I learned during COVID. This is crazy. He comes on Wednesdays normally, or Thursdays, and now he's here on a Wednesday. So you asked me about what I learned during COVID, and I think I did a presentation with you and Mark Hyman about the things I learned during COVID. And really, I was very proud of the fact that I transitioned into this practice out of COVID very successfully, because I had the right people around me, and we did all this work prior to do all the systems and protocols and change that. So when it came to COVID, it was just like, okay, I have the people to support it. We just have to pivot and tweak some things. And we were wildly successful. And quite frankly, we were too successful. And I know that sounds weird, but we were able to see a lot of patients in a safe and predictable way. I didn't really care to do 4 hygiene, but we were doing it. And that became exhausting. And I think there's a lot of dentists out there that understand this, because you're taking 3 months off and you're shoving 3 months worth of those patients with 3 months of already scheduled patients. And it's a problem. And to me, it became something where I don't really like to practice that way. That's not my modality. That's not how I like to do things. That's not how we work in the office, because when I have a patient in front of me, I am 100% committed to that person's care. But if I also have other patients I have to see that are also in need right then, I'm splitting my attention, I'm splitting my time, and I don't feel right about it. And that's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. So yeah, when we had this scheduled phone call last Thursday, it was one of my breaking points. And I think we all have those moments. Now, on the other side of things, I take those moments of bad days and I spin it as a positive, because that's when you learn the most. And there's a lot of dentists out there that rant and rave and get all upset, and then they come back the next day and not clearing their head and figure out a way to get around that or learn from those days, where I say, this is a valuable moment. How did I get here?
Yep.
What actually happened that pushed me into that direction where I became overwhelmed and anxious and in a state of panic? And what can I do to prevent that next time? And I think that's so important to know those things ahead of time. And I said, okay, I need to take more time off. I need to schedule my day a little bit better in terms of block scheduling, because we had a block schedule, but obviously we didn't abide by that. All these different ways of thinking and how we can kind of tweak it, because I don't know, I had the next day off. And when you have the next day off, you can come back refreshed on Monday morning saying, okay, I'm good. I'm not even remembering that Thursday, and I'm comfortable with that. But that's the beauty of private practice. That's the beauty of kind of manning your own ship, because I can call the shots here and say, no more. We're not doing this way. I'm making the changes, and this is how it's going to happen. Because when you can control those things, there's something really powerful about that, and knowing that you're not just being driven on this hamster wheel of life over and over and over again, and then you're just going to become exhausted and burnt out.
Yeah.
And that's not my way.
Yeah. And you and I talk about this all the time, but the most important component to your practice, other than your team, is how you think. It's not your CBCT, it's not your equipment, it's not your facility, because if you own your own business, you can pivot at any time and go, I don't like this. I'm going to think a little bit better, because the problem isn't often the problem. It's often how you think about the problem. And I learned that from Dan Sullivan years ago. And I want you to talk about this too, because you're in no different boat than any other dentist. You've had some of the largest months you've ever had. And a lot of that is for different reasons. You had work that was ready to go, built up. You guys hadn't been working full schedule. And then you said something to me yesterday that was awesome. You're like, okay, I'm dealing with what everybody else is dealing. I'm wondering what September, October, and November is looking like. And so as a countermeasure from that double hygiene thing, talk us through the whole 3 versus 4 day thing that you mentioned yesterday. I love that.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is the value in terms of having someone like you, or having a mentor on the side that you can kind of pick someone's brain. So we go back and forth all the time, and I love those discussions, but people out there listening can also have these discussions with those around them that are also in the same boat. You don't have to have a Kirk Barrett, but you can have a guy in your study club, or a woman who's been around, doing this and that. But we talk about this, and I said, listen, I understood as soon as I came back that there was going to be a pretty big hole in the schedule come September, October, November. Because again, we canceled 3 months worth of patients. So they're not rescheduling their hygiene during that time. And yes, you can do things like look at their insurance and know that they have 2 calendar year appointments so we can put them in. Or you have a lot of inflammation, we got to get you back in 4 months instead of your typical 6 months. And we did that. The problem with that is that we had our Monday through Friday schedule. Mm-hmm. And I started noticing my hygienist and my front desk were putting those patients for hygiene in randomly throughout the day. So on a Monday in October, I had 1 scheduled patient. On Tuesday that week, I had 3 scheduled patients. On Wednesday, I had 1 scheduled patient. And I'm saying, okay, this is going to become a huge issue, because when we come to those days later on, we're not going to have a full day. We're going to have a bunch of half days booked. And nothing's worse in dentistry to come into your schedule and seeing that you have wide open holes in hygiene, when in reality, you can condense that down. So I said, all right, we're going to close down 2 of the 5 days. And we're just going to have a 3-day week schedule. I'm not saying that those are going to be the days that we're only going to work, but we're going to schedule those patients within those 3 days. And once we fill those 3 days, then we'll open up the 4th. And once we open up that 4th and it gets filled, then we'll open up the 5th. And I know we have patients that need to come in, because we worked with Dental Intel and they tell us we have 723 patients that still need to be booked so we can fill them. So I told my team, I'm like, I don't anticipate not working these days, but I'm doing it more strategically, so that way when we do have those days available, we can fill it. We're predictable, we're profitable to keep paying the bills. I can pay your salaries, And at the same point in time, I'm not coming in for a half day's worth of work because that's
Yeah.
just not a worthwhile, sense of your time.
And
So
tell us why. So you mentioned the recovery thing. So having that day just to recover, and then even in a pandemic, you and I talked about this. One of the challenges is, and I'm in the same boat as, I always look forward to a trip, and we're kind of in this weird place where we can't really look forward to an awesome trip with our families.
sure.
So give some voice to that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most powerful things I learned from working with ACT is when Christina said, "Let's count the number of days you're scheduled to work for 2019." I said, "Okay, 232 days." And she goes, "I need that number to get to 180." I'm like, "You want me to cut out 52 days?" She goes, "Exactly.
Yeah, but your
One
production's
week
going to go down, right?
it went up."
Wait,
So I
wait, wait,
started
wait,
working
wait.
180. Yeah. So it's a thing of magic, right? I don't understand it, but it becomes something when you can cut 50 some days a year and you make more. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but you become very
Right.
efficient with your time. And, I was talking to my mentor, Zach Sisler, about this, and we realized that while we did take 3 months off, I still might match that number from last year or surpass it. So are you
Yeah.
telling me that if I can keep cutting and cutting and cutting, we can still do the same numbers? I don't need to really make more money. It's more about cutting down the days now. So
Right.
next year, I'm looking at 160 days, and that's going to be a great thing for me and my family, because now I have the time to recover. I have the time to take the trips I want to do. I have the time to take the CE that I want to take, all the while finding a balance of life. That's my vision. That's what I'm all about, is finding that balance, because I never want to get to that state of anxiety, overworked, burnout, because that's just not who I am. And I'm very, this, I'm very, very cognizant of how I feel. And if I'm too much, I pump the brakes completely and say, this is just not going to work for me.
Yeah.
Let's do something different. And I pivot. I always pivot, and I always find different ways about doing things.
Yeah, the coolest part about that's the why you picked dentistry in the first place, is because of the life piece. So if you're a young dentist and you're listening to this is a really important thing, and I want you to hear what Kevin had to say, because depending on who you listen to, the average dentist in the United States works between 204 and 209 days a year. And oftentimes we think, gosh, well, in order to make more money or get ahead or pay down some of this debt, I'm going to have to work more and more and more. And that becomes a vicious cycle, because dentistry is inherently stressful. I don't care if you're doing 1 crown, I don't care if you're doing 10, and you have to recover so that you come back. And the cool thing about what you've done is you have an incredible team. You spend a lot of time developing them. You also have a great practice in which you've trained patients on when to come in, when to pay. Like, you don't have evening hours. Do you work Saturdays? Like, do you work Sunday then? Like, if you're only working
No
160?
evenings. We cut our evenings out, and I thought we were going to lose a lot of our Wednesday night patients because my dad had done it forever.
Mm-hmm.
And they just said, no, sure. I always went home and showered. I always felt like it was a waste of time. So I'm happy to take a 10 a.m. appointment. I'm like, wait, what? You were able to come in at 10 a.m. and yet you came at 7 o'clock at night on a Wednesday?
Yeah,
That doesn't make any sense to me.
right.
And now I have time to spend every single afternoon with my family. I put my daughter down for bed every single night. It's a thing of beauty. And that's what I'm living this life for, is to have that time with my family, the time with my daughter, the time with my wife, and I'm not burnt out. I'm having the energy to sustain. But I tell you, before all this, I didn't have that energy. I worked
Yeah.
in a job where I was working 14-hour days, and I was expected to go do certain things after the fact, and it killed me. It really did, and it wasn't the life I wanted to live, and that's really all it comes to.
Yeah. And you got golf league on Tuesday nights too. So you got something to look forward to right
It's a
after the
great
week's,
thing. I love
which is
that.
important. Like, you got to
I
have
find joy with, right?
yeah,
If you enjoy something, nothing should limit you to finding that joy, right? I mean,
right,
go out and do it, because that's what life is about.
right.
It's not, I will be happy when I do this. It's, I find happiness now, and I will continue to find happiness in the future, because I'm content with what I'm doing, and I'm going to continue to keep building and growing towards that, and making the
Right.
changes to allow yourself to have those moments that you can really find fulfillment.
Right. And I also want to speak to, maybe if you're a 32-year-old dentist and you're listening and going, hey, look, Dr. Groth, I understand, but I bought this practice. I don't have the team that you're talking about. It's not been a perfect go for you. You've had to learn how to step up, how to make some difficult decisions. And some of them have been challenging. Like, give us some perspective on the lessons you've learned as being a leader and
Yeah.
working with a team in that.
I mean, I graduated middle of my dental class. I'm not some brainiac. I'm not some genius here. I'm an average Joe. And ultimately, if I could do it, anybody can do it. I really believe that. And it's something that I find people see that and find motivation, but I've been there. And I think on social media also is very difficult, because when you follow somebody that seems to have it all, that's a really big challenge. And it's a moral defeat, because you're saying, wow, they're doing all these full mouth cases and they have this fancy office and they're doing all this stuff, where I'm not that position, and it's defeating. And you can get there too. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of effort. And I said before signing up with ACT, I'm going to work harder than I've ever been before, but I want to be your poster boy. And, I think it's foreshadowing in terms of what it came out to be, is that I've had a great deal of success because I worked hard, but I also, it's not easy to fire somebody that you've known your whole life. But it had to be done because I learned the value of surrounding yourself with the people that make you better, that have the same core values. And it's not that these people had bad intentions or were bad people, but they just didn't fit my way. They didn't fit my system. But then when you surround yourself with a group of people that really embody you, now you've multiplied yourself 10 times. And the effect you can have in an office is far greater than you just doing it yourself, which is also exhausting. And it's not the way to work. It's not the way to live.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the secret sauce. Everybody's learned that the hard way. And I've learned it 1,000 times, probably the wrong way. Is the people around you are your secret sauce. But I'm the biggest challenge to those people being happy, being engaged, all that. So I got to figure that piece out. And then also too, sometimes the challenge isn't bringing new ideas in, it's moving the old ideas out, because we subscribe to the 7 most expensive words in business. That's the way we've always done it. And you're afraid.
Over and over again. Oh, it's just awful. And it limits you, and it becomes defeating when you try. I tried. I really did try to do this on my own. And I came in, I had 20 ideas that I brought from other offices that I worked in. I said, this is what they do. We have to do it this way. Now, the problem with that type of leadership is you're coming at them with an overwhelming amount of things to change. And when you come at them with that many things to change, they don't know what the priority is, and they don't know the plan behind that. And on top of that, now you're coming at them with 20 things that you're critical of them about. So now you're saying you're doing these 20 things wrong, and nobody wants to be criticized. That's what Mark Hyman always talks about, is that criticism is unfortunately no way to train or evolve a team, because when you're critical of somebody, they become very defensive, and they say, well, I've done this for 30 years and I've seemed like I've worked hard. Now this kid who's come out of dental school in 6 months is now telling me that I'm deficient in everything in my job. Like, what does he know? And they shut down, and they don't want to do anything for you because they know that I'm on thin ice with this guy. And I was a horrible leader. I assumed I was a good leader, horrible leader. And I feel bad about those moments. But like you said, you almost have to walk through those times to learn how to do things, and I had to struggle. I had to find, that I couldn't do this on my own, and it's an admission, and you become very vulnerable in saying, I can't do this the way I want to do it. I need help. Yeah. And saying I need help is the biggest phrase that you can bring up to anybody who wants to help and mentor you, because they all say, I've been there.
Yeah.
Jump on my shoulders and I'll drag you forward with me. I'll take it somewhere else. That's important.
It's hugely important. And so, one of the things I heard from a mentor a long time ago is people say, oh, it takes time to get results. He goes, no. Not getting results takes the most time. Like, that's where you waste all your time. You spend years and years and years trying to get results, when you can have somebody like a Bill Robbins or somebody go, don't do that. Don't do that. I've been doing this for 40 years. Don't do that. And you're like, oh my gosh. And then you stop and you go, wow, that really worked. So the value of time is critically important, especially as we get older. You're like, I don't have time to waste anymore. So having people around you that can improve your thinking all the time, I think, is absolutely critical. Number 2, if you don't, you talk to yourself, which is really bad talk.
Horrible.
So,
we're our biggest critics
right.
all the time, especially dentists. Like, we're all such type A nutcases that we just think we are so perfectionistic. And if something isn't perfect, it sits in our brain forever and ever and ever. You got to dump that out somewhere, and it's got to be on some person or some mentor or somebody, but you can't really do that all the time with your spouse either, because then it becomes a very hard thing, because it's constantly negative, and you want to stay positive when you come home too. So I stopped talking about the office when I came home. And I think that became a really powerful thing too, because I had other people that I can kind of reach out to. And Christina, my coach, was an amazing thing. And because I could just kind of unload, and we can find a direction behind that. And she's a third party, so she's not really emotionally attached to what I was doing. Right. Versus somebody that's in the thick of it all, it makes it really hard to understand that. So I've learned a lot. That's ultimately what it comes to, is that, and it's a short period of time. I've been out for 7 years, and I did a lot of this work within a year and a half to flip everything around.
Right.
If I can do it, anybody else can do it. I really believe that. That's what the show is about. That's what I want to do. And I want to keep bringing people forward, because if I can do it, anybody can.
Yeah. I need like 4 hours with you, because all the things we talk about, I could literally go down a list of things that you and I share, and you even taught me. I want you to talk about, let's get really specific about the pandemic. If you're a young practice owner, cash flow, all of these things, even with the government assistance and the idle loan and all this, it's a moving target. And then you said to me this week, you're like, okay, I fully embrace profit first. So we had a shutdown. I wasn't stressed out. And even going forward, can you talk about that? I want you to tell them what you told me this week. I thought that was great, how you're reframing the financial health of your practice through the rest of 2020.
Well, I think people like to avoid finances, for some reason in life. We just don't talk about it, but I think it's a really important topic, because we have to also have the financial stability to stay afloat. And especially dentistry, I broke my wrist in dental school. So I learned the value of, when something happens to you, you need to be protected. So I always had the disability policies to the max that allowed me to know that comfortably, if I fall and break my wrist, or if I fall and something happens to me, I will be covered for this amount of time. But the policy doesn't go into action for 90 days. Most policies, right? Mine does. So with that, I need to know that I have enough savings for my business to survive, and myself personally with my family to survive for 90 days. So that became a very motivational thing for me, and my financial advisors at Engage Advisors work on me a lot with this. And it's something that, I'm going to have 90 days worth of expenses saved up. And really you can float for 30, because you can put it on a credit card. And in that time, so now I have 90 days worth of that, but I didn't anticipate a pandemic coming. Right. So then when the pandemic came, it became something, well, okay, I didn't have a disability, but at the same point in time, I do have 90 days worth of finances saved up. And so now I said, I can survive 30 months. This is going to be good. However, then we come back to work and we start making money again. Now I make more than I needed, but where's it going to go? It's going to fill in those coffers that I drained during those pandemic days. Anyway, with profit first though, it became something where the accountants told me, okay, we're going to have multiple accounts, and you're going to have one account that all the money's going to come into. And then from there, you're going to divide it amongst the 4 accounts. You're going to have your tax account, so that you're not going to be surprised when we're going to say, hey, you owe $50,000 for this quarter, or whatever it may be. And then on top of that, we're going to have your expense account, because I know that I have an overhead about 52, 55%, depending on the time. Now, I didn't have that right away, and Christine was on me a lot because I paid my staff well. Right. And I knew that as I pay my staff well, we're going to make more. So that percentage of my staff contribution is going to be lower and lower in that time. So I went from 60% down to 55, and now I'm at 52% because I have good people around me, but I'm paying them more, which is even cooler, right? So I'm paying them more, but it also fits in those percentages that need to be. So I know that I put about 60% of my finances into the expense account. And then I have 10% that goes into my profit account or emergency savings account. And then I have my 20% that I pay myself on top of that. So you're paying yourself first, which is a principle from personal finance books all the time that they talk about. Have everything allocated in these different expense accounts or profit accounts or whatever it may be. But you have to expense or pay yourself from those amounts, because if you have it sitting in an account, you're going to spend it, as opposed to divvying it up right away and pushing it into something else. So when the pandemic came, I had enough to survive. And then once it came out of it, now I have enough to survive, because I do know September, October, November is going to come, and I still want to pay my team. I still want to keep afloat. So I'm going to have to survive off of that. So if it means that we cut my salary out, I'll still have the money to survive, because I put it all away right now, and I'm kind of saving it, which I think is important too. Yeah. So, and hopefully I don't have to do it. I don't want to dig into that. That's the most important thing, but I can be comfortable in the sense that while everything is crazy around me, financially I have some stability, which is an important thing, because I planned for all this. It's a cool
operating system that'll always serve you well. And the cool thing about it is you always have enough money, because you're budgeting on 100%. Do you know what I mean? You're never out of money, it's been the age old thinking behind a profitable, healthy business. So that is
Yeah.
fantastic. You can
And then
check
you
it
can
out.
do fun things with it too, right? So now you can say, okay, let's start working on maximizing. I have some extra money right now on my personal amount, so I can put that into a Roth IRA,
Right.
and that can be backdoored into a traditional IRA. And then you can also say, I'm going to maximize the 401k. I'm going to max out my HSA. So now I'm maxing out all these things. So I had someone ask me like, well, how do you freely just spend that? I'm like, because I've already maximized everything responsibly. So now I have this pool of money that I know I have, and I can live off this without any guilt behind it. Because I think we're so worried, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't go out to eat and spend that money. Well, you've earned it.
Right.
Live with it. Enjoy that time and enjoy those things that you're spending on a vacation or something else that you want to find value in, because that's what life's about, is finding those things that you enjoy and doing it.
You're 33. That's why I love talking. Like, you have 3 full decades of this in front of you, if you choose to work that long, which makes it so much fun. And I think that's the biggest thing. You and I talk about this all the time. Is just knowing that your future is bigger than your past. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can go to work every day and just go, hey, this is a great profession. It's not perfect, but it's getting better. And I can see there's some light at the end of the tunnel. It's a little bit more fun. I got money, things are under control. I can afford to get away. I mean, working 160 days a year, we're going to have to do a separate show on that one. And you're going to walk us through the details on that. But one of the big, I'm going to always ask you this as we have you back over and over and over again on this segment. I want to know, when you look at where you're at right now, what's your current vision for your life? Like, not only your practice, but your life. Take us through both, all, each, whatever.
I think initially when I signed up with ACT, and I keep promoting ACT here, it's not my intention, because people can work with anybody they want to work with, whether it's a mentor or a coach or whatever it may be. But we started working on a vision. And that vision for me, I really was very detailed about it. And it became a 5-year vision, but I ended up doing it within a year. And that was really a cool thing. But then it became almost stressful, because it's like, what is your current vision? What do you want now? And I'm like, I don't know. But I'm just kind of living in the present, and knowing that I do have a high motor, that I'm going to keep pushing and working hard, and I'm going to find these goals that I'm going to set, and I'm going to keep doing all these different things. But life has a funny way of reminding you of certain things, of being present, if you are able to see those moments, right? And a good example of that is, I was at the pool with my daughter the other day, and we were sitting in the baby pool. And I love doing that with her. She loves the water. She picks up the rings. She plays with it. It's fun. But across the pool, I see a group of 6 people, and they're all in their late 20s, early 30s, no kids, just having a great time for someone's birthday. Mm-hmm. And I just kept watching them as opposed to my daughter in the baby pool, right? Because I was kind of almost envious of those moments, because I remember those days. I remember not having a kid, and I could drink, and I can have a hangover the next day. And when you have a hangover with a kid, it's punishment. It's horrible. Right. It's the worst thing ever. Right. So now I'm like, okay, I'm responsible now, but I do miss those days. Not that I would ever go back to those moments in my life, but at the same point in time, I appreciate that. So I became very envious of them. And then I look over to my right, and I see a dad who has teenagers, and he's looking at my daughter and I in the baby pool. Wow. He came up to me saying, I miss those days. Mm-hmm. So he's telling me I miss those days. I'm looking at them and saying I miss those days. And it reminded me that we need to be present with everything in life. Enjoy the moment that we're in, because that's the good old days that we're going to look back on one point in time of our life. And when you can say, I remember being in the baby pool with her, I remember those moments, and I remember all those, and I have such feel-good memories of that. But it's very difficult to be present all the time. Yeah. Because we're always either looking back or we're looking forward, and what the next thing is going to become for me and the latest and greatest thing. But it's very difficult to be present and understand that there's some contentment where you are, and you find fulfillment and happiness where you are right now. And not to say that the future we always want to have become better, but we also need to appreciate those moments and slow things down. I think the COVID thing, the silver lining of COVID, is that it has forced us to have those moments. Right. Because my schedule's not busy personally. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going on trips. I'm not going to see. I'm taking 4-day weekends, and they're the best weekends of my life right now, because I don't have anything to do. So I could just be there with my daughter, with my wife, and we can just say, what do we want to do today? Let's go for a walk. Yeah. Let's go to the ice cream shop. Let's just have some fun today doing whatever we want to do. And being present is so important. So that is my current modality right now, is saying, just live, dude.
That's
Just enjoy what you're
powerful.
doing and be present with everything you can be with. So
Yeah.
that's kind of
That's a
where I'm at.
great reminder. Isn't there a song like that? These are the good old days. Like whatever you're,
It is.
like it is like right now. And I remember, gosh, what I can't now. It's going to escape me. But like all you have or all you ever need, it's right in front of you. It's
Mhm.
right with you. Just using it in the right way, having the right thinking. And recognizing that we're also human. We can't work ourselves to death. And
Right.
part of that as a dentist is getting all these pieces to work so that you get what you want out of this. We get one shot at this thing called our lives. But you know what? If you get some of it right, it's a pretty good formula, don't you think?
Cool. But then if you are content with where you are right now on the simplistic level of things, like
Yeah.
you said in that conference in 2017, then if you do the cool things like a vacation somewhere, that's just an added bonus in terms of your
Right.
fulfillment and happiness. That doesn't define my happiness. That just makes me happier. It doesn't make me, I don't know, who I am. And I think that's important. I guess also what Bo Bruce said last week on the show, every single tooth you work on is going to end up in a box one day, and what isn't going to die are the relationships and the things you did with people around you. And
Yeah.
that's so powerful to me that that's what it all becomes. It's the relationship I've established with you, with my mentors, my friends, my family, my colleagues, whatever it becomes. It's all about that. And I think that's important to recognize. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I
that's
love
your
it.
vision for your life. Give us your vision as an educator, where you want to go with the new dentist show. And we can kind of allude to a little bit of what we're doing. You and I share the same passion. We love being educators. We love, I'm a CE junkie. I will admit it. And it's a disease I have. I just love it so much. But I want to know your vision as an educator, as an influencer, as a leader, a young leader of this great profession. What's your vision on that side of things?
Sure. Well, the untold story is the fact that I almost gave up dentistry to become a teacher. I was in my senior year of college and said, maybe this isn't for me. And I want to teach. I loved coaching swimming. That was a passion of mine. That's something I've always wanted to do. But then my dad said, listen, if you become good enough, if you become educated enough, you can teach one day and you could do that. Now, this is something that I didn't envision being at 33 teaching or educating or being in this realm, but the COVID conference kind of threw me into it because I was just like, okay, I'm going to learn as much as I can. So at some point in time, I will be able to share that to people. People found motivation from me for whatever reason because I don't know, I'm an average Joe and I can be inspirational behind that, which is cool. So starting the New Dentist Show really became a platform for me, and it's a reach out point to other people to say, hey, hop on my shoulders. Let's go far. Let's do things here because I think that's important. And I love it. I found my passion. I found the fact that if I can reach out to other people and inspire them and give them some type of purpose that I had, game on, let's do it. And that's what I think is all about. And so I don't really know what we're going to do, but I do know that we're going to always, Kirk, you and I are going to be together. And I think it's something that I think we're going to really find a way to reach out to as many people and influence as many people as we can through great education, through great conversations and dialogue that we can all have with each other. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about my golf league is that I talk to my partner who went to dental school with me and we have these awesome conversations. And that's how we learn the most is through these awesome conversations. So that's what these shows are about. That's what the podcast is about, is reaching out through conversation and dialogue and learning from each other and picking people's brains. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the margins of a crown. It's not about the occlusal scheme here, or whatever we can debate about. It's about life. And then figuring out how everything fits in together with that.
Yeah. Buddy, you're making the world a better place. I have no doubt you're going to continue to change the world and make this profession even better. And it's important to everything. I mean, we need it in our families, we need it in our communities, and we certainly need it in a great, noble profession like dentistry. So, buddy, I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for our relationship. I'm grateful for what you teach me every single week. And I know people that are listening are going to want to know more about you. So if I'm just hearing you for the first time, how do I find out more about Kevin Groth? Like,
sure.
where can I find you? Like, how can I watch more of what you're talking about?
I really love email. I think people email me all the time, and I'm sitting there all day long responding to emails. So you can email me at kevingroth, Groth, @gmail.com. That's a great one. But also you can look up The New Dentist Show on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram too. I like Instagram over Facebook. So Dr. Kevin Groth on Instagram, that's easy. So I'm accessible. I'm just here to reach out because people have reached out to me. I've reached out to a lot of people and they've led me along, and I just want to return that favor. So that's what
Awesome, buddy.
that's what it's all
Awesome,
about.
buddy. Well, thank you for being on, man. I really
Happy
appreciate
to be
it.
here. This is a goal of mine. So I'm like proud of this moment because I found so much inspiration from the podcast. I found so much motivation from all these people. That was a surreal moment when I had Rob Ritter on because he changed my practice. He was a foundational component of my vision. And so for me to acknowledge this and say, I've never met you, you've never met me, but you've changed my life more than you ever know. And it was a touching moment for the both of us, which is pretty cool. So awesome. I want that moment for a lot of other people out there. So
it's going to keep happening.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Cool. So, and lastly, I just want to thank all of you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning in the Best Practice Show podcast. Again, if you enjoyed today, do us a favor, just hit the share button. Keep subscribing. That is all for us or from us for this week. And we will be back next week with another great edition with another great educator. And keep sending us suggestions for things that you guys want to see. We are just getting started here. And I want to leave you with one last thought. You are in an amazing profession, a very noble profession. You picked a great profession in dentistry, and it is your chance, your opportunity to totally create your future right now more than ever. And Kevin, you are a living, breathing example of somebody who's just creating your own future. And it's really fun just to listen to your story. So I appreciate you, brother.
It's an honor to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're out. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining in. Have a great rest of your day. Bam. That was awesome, buddy.
It was great. Hey,
it was fantastic.
So just despite the lawnmower, but there's
some don't even sweat. Don't even sweat. For me, this is a pure joy because now I'm not worried about a damn thing other than what you're saying.
So much better. It just became very comfortable to speak in that way and not worry about the chat, not worried about some of the stupid people's questions and whatever comes. So I find some people's chat questions to be kind of like, really, that's what you're going to ask, or that's your mindset right now? I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but
it doesn't. So I'm going to copy you on all the correspondence with Caleb, and then just so you'll see the workflow, and then hopefully, I don't know if he can turn it around by Monday, but even if he can't, I'll still give you the recording, and then we just roll with that.
Yeah.
So you're off on Monday night. Go take your wife to dinner.
I'm so excited about that. I should, right? That should be like a Monday night thing. That'd be great. That's a good idea.
You'll just post this. You take your wife to dinner and go, hey, look, I know we normally have a show, but tonight we're going to dinner. You know what I mean? Like that'll be good. What about the show? It's playing right now. We're good.
That's it, right? Watch it. So,
we're good.
I think it's going to be, I'm just really energized by the recording idea. I think that's really a profound thing because that way it's not so structured, and I think you can do multiple in a week if you wanted to, and then take multiple weeks off.
Well,
once a week, whatever we want to do in terms of that, which is important.
Yeah. So. I think the big, I'll keep pointing to Brene Brown for this. She's her vision is to get into the dialogue, like really get it. And I think that hit the nail on the head for me. It shook me. Like, I'm like, that's what I want to get into is the dialogue. Like I want to know the reasons. Yeah. Not is everything working right now.
You can be so intentional with that discussion, which is good. I think that's such a valuable thing. So
it's awesome.
I don't know.
All right, brother, I got to run. I got to jump to another one, but we'll do another one. We'll just you and I will just stay in conversation constantly. I'll copy on the workflow and then we'll keep rolling. All right.
Yeah. I mean, just let me know if this is something, I don't know how we want to I like the idea of combining, but if you're good with that, I think
game on. It's no brainer. It's no brainer. So new dentist show
easier for you and easier for me. So I'm happy to make it like the new dentist segment of the Best Practices show.
It's brilliant. It's a no brainer. Let's do it.
It'd be cool. I think it's a good way of kind of feeding it. And I think that would really exponentially make the podcast grow because then it becomes something from there. So I'm all about it.
No question, brother. You're the best, man.
It's good to have you as a teammate.
You too, brother. Enjoy this day. Do something fun with it. And I will talk to you later this week. Okay.